listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple and wherever you get your podcasts. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today, I'm going to do something a little different for a couple weeks. I'm going to take a break from doing ADHD episodes just for a couple weeks. And in the meantime, I am going to do a 4-part series on CPTSD in relation to doing processing, the 4-step process. I'm going to do a real-time live processing with part or multiple parts within me as I record my podcast so that you, the audience, can experience in real time someone doing the 4-step process. I was thinking about how I was going to do this because sometimes processing, as I have explained in a number of episodes in the past, that sometimes step 1 or even going into step 2 can take a very long time. So I can't promise anybody that I'm going to get to the end, to step 4 by the end of the 4th episode. The amount of time I'm going to spend on each episode is exactly 30 minutes, and that does not include the ending of the show. So basically 33 minutes or however long it might take. So if this isn't your cup of tea and you are not interested, that is fine. I will have another ADHD episode in 2 weeks. But for those who listen to my CPTSD episodes, you're in for a treat, I guess, if you want to call it that. Just a bit of a warning, there may be possible triggers that come from this in case any of the issues that I am discussing with myself or to the recording is similar to trauma and issues that you've had in your past as well. And I hope that this goes well. There might be a bit of silence, but I'm going to try and minimize that. This will not be edited, as I said at the first few episodes of my podcast. This will be live, real time. And I hope that together we will have an experience that will be gratifying, helpful, and healing. If there's anybody you know who would be really interested in learning about processing with your parts, I definitely recommend that you refer them to this episode and the 3 following. So this is how it's going to work. Today is going to be part 1. Tomorrow morning will be part 2. Next weekend will be parts 3 and 4. And then the week after that, we will go back to our normal schedule. All right. Here we go. Okay, first step in a 4-step processing is to listen to your part. To identify that part, name it, find out how old it is, find out what gender it is, find out what its purpose is, why it's here, and when it was born. And we listen to it. We try to figure out what it says, or not figure out, we try to understand and learn why it's here and what it's doing for us. Now, one thing I want to make very clear to anybody who is very new to processing with your complex trauma, and you're trying to learn about your parts, is you need, before you can do any work, you need to be unblended with your system. If you are blended with your parts, you will not be able to succeed whatsoever. So the very first thing you must do before you even start processing is you must be sure that you are unblended and you are grounded. Once you have achieved that, once you feel like you are the adult and you feel calm and you feel grounded, then you can start the 4-step process. And one thing I want to make sure is that you can process with your system whether you have just recovered from a traumatic event or a trigger, or if you're having a great day and you're feeling fine and you're happy. You can do it at any point. All right, here we go. Step 1. Okay, I have been recently having some problems, and I have had a part that has come online and has taken over for me when I suddenly get overwhelmed. And I identify that first off, I am triggered, and I have grounded myself, and I am no longer blended with my part or parts. So I am identifying, I'm going to listen to the part. I'm going to say what I'm thinking, because normally you think it and you speak to yourself, but I'm going to do more talking than what I would normally do, just so that you guys hear my thoughts and the words that are coming. Okay? All right. Okay, parts. Who is out there? Talk to me. Let's find out where this fear came from, where this trigger, who got triggered. All right. We both know that my partner got upset and was very angry, and I got triggered. And instead of being the adult and speaking in an adult tone and showing her true and natural empathy and support and meeting her needs, I had a child part that was blended with my system that took over and did not do that. Instead, they tried to be defending of the adult in a childlike manner. Okay, child part. Who's out there? Who would like to speak? All right. So it might take a moment for it to come up, but we'll try. And we'll see who speaks, who comes up. All right. Okay, I have a part that is an anxiety part. And I also have a part that is coming up that protects me when I am feeling scared and I am feeling confused because I don't know what is happening. And I'm not fully aware of what is going on in the moment. So these two parts come online, and they attempt to protect the adult by behaving in a certain way because they see that the situation is dangerous. The anxiety part is 5 years old. This part was born when I was in my 5th year, so 1983. It is a male child part, and his name is Anxiety. And he was born to protect me when things were scary and nobody knew what was going to happen. There was no expectation, and the situation in the moment was very unpredictable, and a lot of nerve and a lot of worry was occurring. So this anxiety part was born to look out for the child, in order for that child to be able to survive the moment that was scary and where he was very worried, because he felt that the person who was angry at him was not able to understand what was going on and why the behavior that was occurring just before the part was born had occurred. So I'm asking this part to tell me about itself, to tell me everything it can. This child part works on his own. He is a major part in my system. He is one of the more core parts. He is one of the earlier parts that came to be in my life before many others. And he wants to protect the child. He wants to make sure that I am safe. And the reason that he wants to make sure that I am safe is because in those moments, there was a lot of unknown. And what he thought was the capability to say to the person or the adult that was looking after him when he was 5, to be able to understand that he's sorry and he didn't mean to do anything harmful or did not mean to be a bad kid. And then that person didn't care or was too angry and too upset to be able to see reason and to be able to stop and understand that the child is sorry. So that part you became and was born to protect him, to protect me when I was 5. He always wanted to make sure that when situations arose, that the anxious feeling was a way of survival, because that allowed him to be able to think, to be able to come up with different ways or different possibilities or different ideas to try and stop the next discipline scenario from occurring, because he knew that when he was in trouble, doesn't matter if it was an accident or if it was something he purposely did that was bad, that the discipline was going to be very extreme and very hurtful. And so the anxiety part came out to try and come up with ways before there would be any disciplinary action happening to try and help stop it, or try and help convince the adult that there's no need, that it doesn't have to happen, that he's very sorry. And sometimes what he comes up with isn't necessarily the truth. Sometimes the anxiety part has lied in the past in order to cover up or to possibly deceive the adult, to trick that adult in order to stop it. Sometimes it did work, not as often as he would have liked, but there were definitely times when the methods that he tried in the moment were successful. Sometimes it was direct. Sometimes the person that was about to attempt the disciplinary action had a soft spot and did stop. Sometimes it was an indirect. Sometimes the person's sometimes the person's partner would intervene and would talk sense into the person who was attempting or wanting to do the disciplinary action. And they would see after discussion that it wasn't worth it, that it wouldn't be necessary. And that gave that 5-year-old child a sense of relief and a sense of success. And so that anxiety part had a purpose. And the anxiety part was to allow the child to be able to find a way to fix it, find a way to avoid being disciplined. It didn't always work, like I said, but that part was born in order to do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to ask this part if there is any other information that they would like to provide or like to tell us before we decide to move to the next step. Now, I want you to understand that a lot of times this doesn't always go as fast as this did. The reason that it didn't go as long as it could have is because I have done previous work with this part. This anxiety part is known to me. It isn't a new part. It isn't someone that I've had to identify from scratch and get to know and learn all about who he is and their purpose and why they were born. So maybe if I am able to get through the 4 steps with this first part, I can try and see if I can maybe identify a new part. Or maybe I can talk to a part that I have less information about and I'm not as familiar with. Okay. All right, anxiety part. Is there anything else that you believe is necessary to tell me that you feel is important in today's discovery? All right, so I'm going to let him think about it. And while I wait, I am just going to try and not allow too much dead air time here. It's very important that we give him time and space and we don't make them feel any pressure or any negativity or any resentment. We don't say any negative sort of name calling or accuse them of anything or say that they're bad or that they're doing it wrong or that what they're doing for us is unnecessary. All that is damaging and will set you back a great deal and make you have to do even more work for an even longer amount of time. And that's just with that part. Who's to say what other damage for other parts could be done by that? Okay, so the part has come back and the part says that he believed that this was a very important role in his existence, his purpose. Because when dealing with somebody who is not able to be reasoned with because they quickly get enraged and get angry and don't have the ability to think properly about what is happening in the moment, they often are very difficult, if not impossible, to reach and to get to before they are angry, beyond the point of return. So what we're going to do is we're going to just make sure that there's nothing else left. And I'm going to ask the anxiety part, is that everything? Is there anything else that you would like to discuss or bring up? Okay. All right, he says there is nothing more that he needs to discuss right now. So what we're going to do is I am going to, normally when it comes to stage 2 or step 2 in a 4-step process, is we feel the emotion that the part felt. And are there any other feelings that are going on that could be close to that part as well? Normally I do it in a quiet manner where I don't say anything. I just sit and relax and breathe and feel the parts without saying anything. Now, because I'm doing a podcast and I'm recording this as I'm doing it, it's going to be very difficult to just sit here and not say anything. So I'm going to try and think or feel the emotion, and then I will repeat or say to you, the audience, what the emotions are, okay? So bear with me. I apologize if there's any dead air. Okay. All right, part. Let's feel what the emotions they're feeling. Okay, the part. There are emotions of scared. The part was very scared and felt worried. The part was very scared for my health and well-being when I was 5, because I'm an innocent 5-year-old child who doesn't deserve to be treated and punished the way that I was treated. He feels angry. He feels angry because of the fact that this was not necessary. None of this needed to happen. No child at 5 years old or at any age in any family ever deserves to receive unjust and unnecessary punishment. If a child behaves badly, whether it's by accident or they feel that they need to, break out and they do something that they don't realize is bad in the moment, they need to be treated with kindness and fairness. Punishment needs to be proper and not scarring and detrimental to their mental health. So this part is feeling anger and frustration. He feels very... I wasn't sure if this was going to be difficult to get through without feeling some kind of an emotional feeling deep inside. I may not publicly or verbally say it or express it in a way that you're going to hear, but inside there are moments where it's difficult to continue without feeling it. There is a moment where there's a lot of... It's extremely scary, and he's very afraid. It's literally to the point of panic and screaming. I'm feeling the emotions that child was feeling when he was 5. He was so afraid to be disciplined and to have it to occur that he was yelling. He wanted it to stop. He didn't want it to happen. He would plead and beg for this person to stop, to not. He would yell out and say, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." He pleaded and begged for that person to stop and to not hit him, to not spank him over and over again. But he wouldn't listen. And so he was extremely scared. And he literally felt like there was nothing he could do. So it was so overwhelming and so painful and so hurtful that when it was all done, he would cry for a long time, very in pain and very hurt. And then there's anger, because he thinks to himself, why would he do this? Why can't he just see and realize that he didn't mean to do what happened, that it was an accident, and he's very sorry. Why can't he just stop and see this? It's not fair. It's not fair that this 5-year-old child had to deal with this, had to feel so scared and so afraid that he had to run and plead and beg with that person to not spank him over and over again so hard. It's extremely scary, and it's very painful. And the fact that there's nothing he can do. He's a 5-year-old child, for Christ's sake. It's not like he can overpower that person. He has no control. He's powerless in this situation. And he can't say anything to anybody because nobody's going to do anything about it. There might be a fight between the two partners. Maybe he feels sorry after when he realizes what he's done. But in the moment, he has no control. And it is not fair. It is so scary, and it's so overwhelming. He never deserved that. He deserved to have a chance to at least explain. He deserved to have the opportunity to be heard, and for that person to be able to think about what he's going to do before he actually tried. Maybe he could have seen that this was damaging and not necessary and ridiculous to be done. But it never did. And that is not fair. That was wrong. And I'm sorry for that. It is definitely not right. No child at 5 years old or at any age should have to deal with that. The trauma that comes from repeated, unnecessary, and over extreme discipline, especially when the child doesn't think that it's necessary or it's right because it was an accident or it's too much. And he has to go as far as pleading and begging for it to not happen and for it to stop when it is happening. It's wrong and it's not fair. I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been able to step in and stop it. To be able to reason with that person. To show them why it's not right and why it's totally unnecessary and what it's doing to that child's mind. He's going to be forever scarred and be afraid of that person because he's going to be afraid that anything he does could result in the repeated behavior from that guardian that he trusts and believes in. It's hard to trust somebody and to not be afraid of someone when it's a repeated occurrence, especially when it's unjust and not needed. I'm definitely feeling it's not right. Imagine a 5-year-old child unable to run away, unable to stop it. This little child, maybe 2 feet tall, innocent. Sure, he's a little rambunctious or wild, and he's probably what will eventually be discovered to have ADHD. And he has parents that may not necessarily know always what to do and know the right thing to say and don't always lead by a great example. But that child is an innocent child. He has no ability to stop what's happening. He's weak. He has the strength of a 5-year-old child compared to an adult male. There's nothing he can do. He's helpless. He's powerless. He has no ability to stop it. All right, I'm almost out of time for the first step. Just going to do some breathing here. All right. The next episode tomorrow, I'm going to do step 3, which is acknowledging and appreciating the part for what they've done, to show them what they've been missing, that they've been heard, they feel heard, and they feel loved and appreciated. That's what will be done tomorrow. I encourage you to stay tuned and listen to part 2 tomorrow. If you need to, I definitely recommend going back before you listen to part 2 and re-listen to the first part, just so that you can try and time it back to back. It probably will be better and more helpful for you instead of having a 24-hour break. Excuse me. You can re-listen to this, multiple times if it helps. Now, you may not have had this exact experience. It may have been very different, but if you are the kind of person who did experience this sort of trauma, then I am very sorry that you had to deal with this when you were a child. You do not deserve it. Okay. Join me tomorrow for part 2. Okay. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.